right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our session where we are doing our first watercoloring session, and our speaker today and instructor, I should say, is Raneem Iftekhar. Raneem is a 17-year-old second-year student at Santiago Canyon College who is hoping to pursue a degree in environmental policy. She is passionate about nature, art, and community service, and has been involved with CARE and Arts and Wilderness Institute. She's also a volunteer for Oliver Storytime and co-leads the Generation of Change project to promote social justice education with Hanifa Sayed. In her free time, she enjoys painting and coming up with new artwork to sell for her small business on Etsy. So without further ado, let's welcome Raneem. Let me find you first, and then I'll spotlight your video. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm very glad everyone was able to join, and I think this will be a very interesting session. Would have loved to do it in person, but as we know now, we've gotten used to Zoom sessions, and it's been some time since I taught something over Zoom, so I'm very excited to do it. And yeah, has anyone here ever attended a watercolor art class before, or ever done watercolor art?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
We did one for Olive.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, we did a greeting card.
Oh yeah, cards is a really fun thing to do with watercolor, since it's simpler and it's usually done faster, and you can do a lot of different things with cards. But today I wanted to teach landscape painting, as it's something I feel like people could learn how to do and use it like on their summer vacations, and you know how in summer people like to go to a lot of beautiful scenery places. So I always remember my summers I would spend painting different landscapes. And so I wanted to teach some of those skills, and it's actually not that hard. Landscapes are one of the easier things to paint and easier things to teach. So I'm just gonna put my phone into the overhead view. So just give me a minute and we'll start the lesson.
So while we're waiting for Raneem, are you all, anyone planning to go on a nice, fun vacation during the summer that has a beautiful landscape, possibly in nature?
Should be with Olive.
It should be with Olive. Okay. Talk about pressure. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I wish you could go to Kashmir then. There's so much of landscape painting.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. I see.
And
Raneem is
Virginia
ready
too.
to go. Oh, this is so nice. Oh, wow. We get a real deal view.
Oh, nice.
I've never seen anything being done like this, man. Putting a camera on the top.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, so I was trying to hopefully get the supplies in it too, but it's a little bit limited. I have so I'm just gonna run through the supplies and check that everyone has them. This is a watercolor piece of paper. I believe this is the size of a printer paper, but whichever size you have is okay. We're gonna be doing it landscape. And I have a cloth. And I have a few assorted brushes. So I have like a big round ones are usually best for watercolor. Oh, I also wanted to check, can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If I sit down, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I have a few assorted brushes. I have a large round one. I have like 2 large round ones, a few smaller round ones, and then also like an angular one, but that's not necessary. Usually round ones are the best because they hold water and kind of spread things evenly the best. So if you have however many you have is good, but you generally do want a big one and a smaller one. And then another thing, okay, so then of course the watercolor, at least 12 colors if you have. That's usually the easiest to work with. I believe mine is 24, but many of the colors I can make. You can see it's quite dirty, but with watercolor, it doesn't really matter too much because you can re-wet it and use the paint that is on these palettes. If you have a palette set that doesn't have like a side thing to mix, you can get a paper plate or something like that to just lift the color up and put it on your palette.
Right.
I'm gonna try to see how I can arrange this so that you can see.
Well, we can use this. We need
Okay.
to mix. Okay.
And if your palette does have something you can mix on, excellent. And then another thing we're gonna need is a jar of water. This is just like a food jar, but I use it for paint, and I filled it with water. Something some people do recommend with watercolor painting is that you have 2 jars of water, but with landscape painting, it's usually quite simple and it doesn't matter too much if the colors mix. And that's usually when people are trying to make portraits or flowers and they want the colors to be like very distinct. But for this, 1 water jar is perfectly okay and is usually what you have if you're on the go anyways. Hold on, where is it? Okay. And then something else, just see something quickly. Okay. I also wanted to make a recommendation. We're not going to be using it today, but this is a water brush. You can find them, I believe they are at Daiso, but they're also online. Just search up water brush. And it actually has a cartridge in it that you can fill with water, and then it has a brush. And when you squeeze it, water comes out of it. And that's really fun if you're on the go and you don't want to have an open jar of water. You can squeeze this. This does tend to make colors though like blend together a lot because you're using the same water, but it's very good for like on the go landscape painting, which is what I use it when I'm on vacation or going somewhere. I usually use this. If I have somewhere to sit down and like, you know, an extended amount of time, I will get a jar. But this is something I usually keep in my palette. Okay, so then the other thing we're going to be using today is just some tape. Masking tape works fine. If you have washi tape, that's the best. But it's paper tape that isn't too sticky. If you do have masking tape, it should work the same. We're going to be using it as a type of painter's tape to be able to section off the paper and create like very crisp lines. I didn't used to do this, but then I saw on a video, I like to watch YouTube videos. I taught everything I know for watercolor painting from online videos, but I saw that people were doing that, and it really does kind of bring the painting together. Like even if it does look a bit messy or like fastly done, once you take off the painter's tape, it really does like bring it together and make it look very crisp. So we're going to be using that. And then that is everything you need for basics. Something I tend to find a little bit helpful if you have a palette that has maybe a lot of colors, it's kind of hard to tell the colors apart. If you can see in mine, over here, it's a bit hard to tell the colors apart. Like over here, it's a bit hard to tell the colors apart. I've used it so many times that I kind of know, but I do kind of guess sometimes when I'm putting it in. I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's like the light brown or the dark brown. So something that does help me is I made this little chart, and I just cut out some paper and made little squares of each of the colors, and this is what it looks like. All the colors look like dried. I made it in the same order that it was here. That's not necessary at all for this class, especially since most of you probably do have 12 color palettes. But it is something I recommend if you want to do in the future, and it just helps to be able to see what each color actually looks like, and not just what it looks like in the pan. So I usually put that at the top. And yeah, I think we're ready to start. Does everyone have everything that I showed except for like the chart?
Just have to get some water.
Okay, Yeah, I'll give everyone like a minute or two to get water and make sure you have the, all the bright brushes and such.
So Raneem, you were mentioning you learned how to do this through videos, like
Yeah, mainly through videos. I like to watch
Wow.
a lot of YouTube like creators. They would make a lot of these videos about like them sketching in their and doing watercolor in their journals.
Mhm.
I always liked journal and sketchbook art.
Mm.
Do I have my sketchbook with me? Hold on, I can show that. Okay, so I always liked journal and sketchbook art, so I followed a lot of people who would show how they paint on the go and paint in sketchbooks. So for example, things like this, like little botanical like sketches and painted in of things I saw like in a nature class or on a hike or something. These are some cherry blossoms from I believe last spring. Let's find some other watercolor art.
You are so talented.
Thank you.
Very nice.
This is a little bit messy, but I actually kind of like this style of like, because it makes me remember where I went. Journaling art is my favorite type of art because it's like a memory scrapbook type of thing. And it helps you remember where you went and what you were kind of feeling at each place. So this was at a park or a nature center. Let's see what else. Oh, this one I quite like. So I like different color. I think this was last summer. We went on a hike and I noticed how a lot of like the whole landscape had this very like yellow and orange tones, and I thought it was pretty. So, and I thought the colors that I was seeing were really pretty. So actually, I think I was on a hike with another artist teacher, and she was teaching a class, and she had these very nice watercolors, so like very fancy, and I wanted to try to use them. So I just asked her if I could use these colors. So then I like, it's called swatching, actually. Like this chart, it's called a swatch, like a paint swatch. So the colors that I liked from her palette, I just put it out here, and then I tried to make some things with those colors. So this was like the landscape we were seeing, and then I just put it on another thing that is fun to do with watercolor is if you just like make a kind of messy background, which is however you want, and then you draw something on top of it, it can look very pretty. So I just drew some trees on top of it. And I think, and this is something I made this is kind of like what we'll be doing today.
Wow.
So this was on Lake Arrowhead on a vacation last summer, I believe. I went with my family, and I was up kind of like after Fajr, and it was really pretty with the sunlight coming through, and I had to work extremely fast because it was leaving very quickly. It also was getting hot, like because the sun was like coming right at me. So I was sitting here, there was a balcony, and I was trying to paint this as quickly as I could, which is why I made it a small size. So that's something also I recommend if you're out and about on a hike. A small size or a small watercolor sketchbook is honestly the best. What we'll be doing if we have more time is a bigger piece of paper, and it's also better when you're sitting down because you can like fill it, and usually do need more water to fill a bigger space. But yeah, I did all of this with this, and yeah, I'll teach everyone some of these techniques today. So I think we're ready to start. Does everyone have their water? Let me know if you're still trying to get something in order. And can everyone see? Let me see what we can see. Yeah, okay, this is okay setup. All right. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with is the tape. Let me move this a little bit so that I can some more. So however you want to do it, like how much space you want to leave from the edge. I usually do it kind of right on the edge, and I'm going to cover the edge of the paper with the tape. I'm going to go on all 4 sides. So just make sure you have enough of that tape. And you want to make sure it's a tape that's not, the reason why we're using paper tape or masking tape is we don't want it to be too sticky and not be able to come off. So things like duct tape or electrical tape and things like that would not be able to come off. But this, see, if I just tear it off, it does come off, which is what we're going to do at the very end.
So if I don't have a tape, what I should do?
If you don't
don't
have tape, that's okay. It's not entirely necessary.
So
It's just something that's nice as like a frame.
Yeah.
It does bring together the painting at the end.
Can I draw with the pencil something?
Yeah, if you wanted to draw a frame with a ruler and pencil, that's okay.
Yeah,
One thing though, the purpose of the tape is it doesn't let the water and the paint go past it, so it like forcefully creates a line. But if you want to do a frame with water and a pencil and a ruler, that's okay. Or you can just paint all the way to the edge of this, and that's totally fine too. You can paint all the way to the edge of the painting of the paper. But yeah, the reason why we use a tape is just like painter's tape. It keeps the paint from going past the line, and because it's straight, it will like forcefully create a straight line. There is something some people use called a masking fluid. It's like I don't have one with me, but it's like a glue type liquid, and it's a fluid, but it does the same thing. It masks off certain areas. And it creates, so that's people use if they want to not have the paint go in certain areas, but not just like a straight line. They want to create the line. That's what people use masking fluid for, but we're not using that today. Sometimes it helps if the tape is a little bit bigger than the piece of paper, so then you can kind of like tape it to your surface. That's not necessary. Or that does help sometimes. Another thing that helps if you are outside somewhere, here, let me get it quickly. Is if you don't have a sketchbook and you have a piece of paper, a clipboard to just hold on to something is very useful. But I don't think we'll be using that today. But yeah, if you're outside or you're on some place that you want something underneath to just make a sturdier surface, and to hold on to a clipboard is the best way to go. I'm going to give everyone a few until like a couple more minutes. Just make sure we have all the tape down, and then we'll start.
If you are done, please let Raneem know. Are you ready to go?
Auntie, do you think maybe because I'm not able to view the gallery or anything, or see like chat, maybe you just let me know when everyone's done?
Everyone looks ready. I see people drinking coffee. I think they're good to go. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna give
ready.
everyone actually a choice for what we want to do. We can do a mountain scenery, something like, oh, hold on. sorry, I don't have, we can do a mountain scenery with skies, mountains, and a forest, or we can do a lake scenery, kind of, the one I showed you that I've done before had a lake and mountains, or we can do something like a field. And what would everyone prefer to do, I guess?
The mountain one that was that Zainab showed, you know, on the when she was saying what
Why are you doing that? She didn't tell us yet.
the mountain and the
She didn't tell us yet.
Which one?
one Zainab had put up, you know, when she was
Oh, the one that was on the advertisement, right?
yes. I don't know. That's my choice. Other people can.
Okay.
So the painters, the one who are live painting, anybody or any preferences? Sister Safia, Sister Rehana, Rabia, Zarina, you guys are all painting.
Maybe the mountain scene.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
mountain
was very-
sounds
that was
good.
Very nice.
Mountains sound good, Sister Ikiga? Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
all right. And Raneem, again,
Mhm.
to be mindful of time, yeah, whatever you think you can finish in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna say.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do a simple mountain landscape then. Okay. So okay. So the first thing we need to do is get your big watercolor brush. I'm gonna use this one. The one that's round and it's bigger, whichever one that is for you. And we're gonna dip into water. And then we're gonna do this. So the main principle with watercolor paint is you want to work from the background to the foreground, and you start usually with like the bigger expanses of color, which would be the sky. So we're gonna start with the sky. I'm gonna just, whichever blue that you have, put it into a little bit of your palette and really water it down. For a sky, you want it to be pretty watery.
Hmm.
Okay, and then once you have that, we're going to start from the top and paint from the edge. And you can keep taking down to the middle.
Already. Which one of your blues are you using, Raneem, from your swatch?
I believe I'm using like this peacock blue.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I have like 4 different types of blues, but usually in a 12 color palette, there are 1 or 2.
Mm.
I have 36 palette paint.
Oh, okay. So whichever
like-
blue that you like for a sky,
Uh-huh.
you can choose.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not, because everyone's colors are different and they're all named different things. I'm not going to
Right.
say which one. One trick people like to do to be able to really like define that it's a sky is they'll put a little bit darker at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And with landscapes, one thing I say is don't really care too much if it's streaky or not exactly all smooth and like continuous, I guess. You want to cover the paper, but see how mine's a little streaky? It's okay, because watercolor in landscapes especially, it actually doesn't matter too much, and it sometimes even looks better if you just let the watercolor do what it does normally. So like the streaks here, they could be clouds, you know? It's okay.
Basically, they're very forgiving watercolors.
Yes, they're
that's
very forgiving, which is why landscapes are kind of perfect for them.
Uh-huh.
Okay, So I think I'm almost done. Just gonna blend the top out a bit more so it's not too like two different things. But that's okay. There's still streaks. It doesn't bother me too much. And yeah, I think I'm done here. I'm gonna get everyone to this point.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Are you ready for the next step?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it.
All right.
Yeah.
So before, since this is still wet, we're gonna do the mountains over that, but it would really kind of bleed all over the place since it's pretty wet. So we're probably gonna move down to the bottom foreground. Let's do a green. It's kind of like a forest. So pick a green that you like. Mine's a little. I'm gonna kind of do different greens and different layers of green, because when you look at a forest, you see different colors of green, even if it's all the same trees and it's just the same forest. If you look at a landscape of mountains and forests and like a big spread out of them, further away it's a different type of green, closer to you it's a different type of green, and they could all be the same tree. So usually what I would do is at the bottom would be lighter greens, and as you go back it gets darker. So I guess let's start with the darker one. If you only have one green, to be able to make it darker, you would add a blue or a brown. But usually a blue can make, hold on, things darker. I have 3 greens. But yeah, so like I have this one, but it's honestly, I kind of want it even darker. So I might add a blue.
And you're mixing it on the side, right? So you
Yeah.
grab a bunch of the paint and that's how you mix watercolors?
Yeah, I just grab with the brush and then put it in the side and mix it and then add water. The more water you add, the lighter it becomes. So for this though, I don't want it to be too light. Okay, so this is like green that I got over here. But however, it doesn't have, yours doesn't have to be perfectly like that. That's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna put it down like this. And kind of just create some hills. These are not going to be like the actual mountains. So don't go too far up into the sky because we still want to leave that space for mountains. But I'm going to just make some hills meeting over here. I kind of want them even darker, so I'm going to make them darker. And again, I'm not really caring too much if it's not really smooth because it's just creating texture, which is good for a landscape. Honestly, with the landscape, you don't want everything to be very smooth, otherwise it'll look like a cartoon. So it's good to have texture. Okay, so once you've created, we're basically going to create layers. So this was the dark layer. It's the background. So if this is the forest, like many hills that have forests on them, and we want to make a lighter one. So just put a lighter green, or you can add some yellow to the mix you already made. I'm gonna make, I think this might be too light. It's a little bit too harsh of a difference. So let's see what we can do about that.
Can you do a light yellow?
Yeah, we would probably want to save that for the bottom. Let's do a medium green here. I'm trying to I have a color called moss green. So I'm going to see if I can use that. If your paintbrush gets too wet and it's not really letting you get a darker color, just dry it and then dip again into the color. And let's see. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay. So I'm using a moss green I have, but you can make this with adding yellow to the other green that you might have. Okay, so here with this layer, we're gonna try to make a little bit different, not follow the exact type of hill that we already made. So I'm gonna try to make a hill here. Have it come here. We want contrasting hill shapes. So I'm making one come here.
How's it going, Olivers? How are your hills?
Mm.
And leave a little, don't go all the way to the bottom, but leave a little. See, I don't have too much space here, if that's okay. But I do have some space here that I want to use for a third layer. All right, so then the third layer will be an even lighter green. So I'm just going to add yellow to mine. Let's see. Yeah, okay. And I'm just gonna fill in this. Hold on, that might be too watery.
I love how all of this can be done with a thicker brush because
Yeah,
thinner
I haven't really
brushes are
switched
the
the
ones that
brush
scare
yet.
me, yeah.
It is easy to, yeah, the back, definitely the base can all be done with the same brush.
Mhm.
And honestly, people do paint even with one brush. There are ways to just, because the other reason why people use round brushes with watercolor is when it's wet, it tapers to a point. So if you know how to control your brush well, you can actually use this big brush to make small details. But that's something that I would probably want to be in person to really show you exactly how you want to do that. So if you have a smaller brush for when we do some of the other details, that might be better. But yeah, I'm just using some of the yellowish, and we'll kind of define that it's a forest a little bit after it dries. But yeah, I'm just painting on top, getting very wet to a background, but might chill on the water. Okay. So I think this is good for me. I'm gonna wait for that to dry. There's a lot of water on it, so I don't want to add a lot of something that's not too necessary. I am just gonna try to define this hill a bit more. Add some darker. There we go. Okay.
That looks great. Wow.
Okay. All right.
How's it going,
Okay.
Oliver's updates?
No, nothing like hers.
It's totally okay. However yours is,
Is it like lines of like blue and different shades of greens? Is that what it looks like on your end? As long
Yeah.
as there's some kind of hill. Come on, give yourself some credit. It's okay.
I would say as long as the paper is filled with color and you can see different colors, that's totally okay. Just don't leave any white spots. And honestly, I don't know if you can see, but I used a little bit too much water, and it's feathered, which means like over. I don't know if you can see here, but it's I used too much water and it's a little bit feathery, so like the water spreads out and kind of creates like a feather effect. Usually you don't want that with watercolor, but with landscapes, you can kind of make it into something. So like this maybe it looks a little bit like grass, and this got a little messy here, but I mean, landscapes look a little like the colors never are perfectly one color. There's texture, so it really does not matter. But when you're painting other things, people try to keep that feathering and like water effects to a minimum, but here I don't think it doesn't matter too much. I honestly think it looks better with it, but yeah, it's hard to replicate the exact same water effect every time. Watercolor is a little bit unpredictable with that. Okay, so then have everyone clean their larger brush. Make sure it's clean of the green. We're gonna start on the mountains. Okay. So mountains, I always thought like when I was younger and stuff, like, oh, you're gonna paint exactly what the color of the mountain is. If it's like you see brown or black, then you have to use black. But actually the colors of mountains really are defined by the color of the sky. It's really just like a darker version of the sky. I don't know if you noticed when you're driving or you see the mountains, they kind of look like different colors depending on what the sky looks like. So it's like the ocean. It really like reflects the colors of the sky. And so whatever color your sky is, you're gonna wanna make sure that's also in the mountains. So whichever blue you used for the sky, get that and then add a little bit of gray or a little bit of black, just a very little amount. So I have it here, I use like this like peacock blue, and then I had some black here already and like a darker blue. So I'm mixing it here and now it's becoming like it's like darker grayish blue. So we're gonna use that. And again, we're going to start with background to foreground. So decide where you want your mountains to kind of start. I'm going to choose the middle of the sky. So you're going to kind of create the outline of the mountain range, however you want it. It really doesn't need to follow what I'm doing. But if it's easier for you to follow what I'm doing, then you can. But I'm just creating an outline here. And keep it light for the background. So see how mine's pretty light, it's pretty watered down. You want to keep it light. And a biggest trick I can teach you with mountains, especially in the background, is you kind of put the darker, like when you first get your paintbrush from the paint, it's usually the darkest. You want that at the top. And then you kind of water it down as you go to create a little bit of a gradient. So I'm just going to add water. I'm not going to go back to the paint and try to make it kind of like a gradient. It's okay if it's streaky. There. Do you notice how it's a little bit like a gradient? So you usually want that with mountains because they have, you know, fog and clouds up there. And it makes it look a little bit more realistic.
What mountain is this, Oliver's? Is it Mount Everest?
Uh,
K2 or? What's the other one? What's the one in Tanzania?
Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Well, hers looks like that, but mine doesn't.
However yours look, it's perfectly okay.
Okay.
Okay, so notice how the reason why we waited for the sky to dry is now if we tried to do this while the sky was wet, we wouldn't really be able to create like a crisp line for the mountain range. It kind of just blend into each other. The way it kind of did for these hills, but the hills don't matter too much. But with the mountains, we really do want to see like a silhouette against the sky, even if it's not really that difference in a color. We want it to be a little bit more crisp. So that's why we wait for it to dry. When you paint wet on like on top of a wet surface, it's called wet on wet painting, which is something you want to do when you want things to blend more and look like that watercolor dreamy effect. But when you want to have crisp lines, you would paint wet on dry. Okay, so if everyone has this, then we're gonna do another layer of mountains. So it gets darker as you come closer. So let's go with it's a darker version of this. And I'm just gonna make my own thing. Hold on, that's too much water. There we go. Okay. So we're gonna try to do the same thing. It's gonna blend a bit more into each other now because it is wet, but that's okay. Just try to keep the water a little bit to a minimum. And again, just kind of create your own lines for how you want it to look. I'm just gonna create one layer down here, I'm not gonna continue it on the other side. And okay. And then I'm gonna do the same thing where I kind of take the water and try to make a gradient. This one's not looking too much like a gradient, but that's okay. Maybe I'll try to. Oh, another thing with watercolor is you can do something called picking up the color. If you put too much of a color in one spot, you can get water and then dry your brush a little bit and then put it over and it kind of picks up the color. You won't ever be able to get it to full white again, but it will pick it up and make it lighter if you realize you put too much of one color somewhere, which does happen a lot in watercolor. But again, it's not too consequential with landscapes. All right, I'm gonna do that same thing where I'm like trying to make the top. And here, if you might find it's easier to switch to a thinner brush if you have like a medium-sized round one. I only have a smaller round one at this moment. That's not going to work at all. But if you have a medium-sized one, it might be easier for you to switch to that one at this point. But I'm just going to try to use this big one. So yeah, again, trying to create a silhouette against the other mountain range. Okay. So we have that. And then we're going to do the darkest one. So I'm just going into this gray blue mixture I made. Let's see how dark this is. it's not as dark as I want it to be. I think it has too much water. So I'm gonna try to make some more. So I have gray or black and blue, some gray, some blue. Okay. Oh, that's a lot. Okay. So now I'm trying to create the darkest layer. I'm creating the silhouette of that. And that one will meet the mountain, the hills I meant. I have a little bit too much water. It might also be because my brush is so big. Like I said, round brushes hold a lot of water, which is good for when you're trying to cover a lot of space. But it's also not good if you're trying to do some detailing. So it might be because there's just a lot of water in my brush. Okay, so I'm trying to make like a different silhouette of a range. I kind of want to take the same one and make a small one over here. And however you want to make the peaks and the silhouette of it, the only advice I have is to contrast them against the layer that's behind it. So don't exactly make it follow it, otherwise it does look a little bit too like a pattern, and you want it to look kind of the way natural mountains do, where the peaks are in different places. All right, I like this. Okay. And again, don't worry too much about feathering and like the colors going in different places, because it kind of looks natural. Okay.
That looks amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like that one. I feel like this one over here is a little bit, you can't see the silhouette too much. So I'm gonna just go in again and try to make it like it stands out more. Yeah. Okay, there we go. I think I might be done with my mountains. I'm kind of feeling, this is something that's not totally necessary, but it's just something looking at my painting that I'm like, oh, this second layer is not as defined anymore. So I'm just gonna go here, try to define it a bit more with a slightly lighter color than the most format, like this one. So just basically watered down version of that. There, okay. I'm not gonna make it too dark because I still want that first, you want that first layer to stand out the most. That's what I would say. If anything, you want this foreground mountain range to stand out the most. Okay. All right. So is everyone at this point, however yours look, it's perfectly okay. Okay. All right. All right, so now we're gonna definitely switch to a smaller brush. I'm using one this size. I kind of wish I had a medium one. I don't know what happened to my medium one. Let's how big this is. No, it's kind of the same. Yeah, okay. All right, and we're gonna try to create some forests, or give the illusion of forests. We're not gonna do individual trees or anything. We might, how much time do we have, Hansi? Oh, 5 minutes. Okay. The last thing we're gonna do then is just some tree silhouettes. So where the hills meet the mountains, that's your darkest green. Get that color again and make it super dark. Don't add too much water to it. So for me, I believe that this is what it is. Okay, it's like this. And I'm gonna try to, oh, not too ideal because the mountains are still wet, but that's okay. Usually you would want to wait a little bit to see if you could get the mountains to dry, but that's okay. I'm just gonna kind of create like squiggly lines on the top to, I'm noticing this green is not exactly the green I had. Okay, but try to get the closest green, just a darker version of it, of your first hill, the hill that meets the mountain. Mine's not exactly it, so I'm just kind of blend it so it looks a little bit more like it did come from the same thing. And just create these squiggly lines, or just kind of dotting works well, like dotting and like blending it together. I'm gonna not do it on the full thing. I'm gonna do it on like the topmost hill. And then some trees are bigger, so you wanna have some of them be bigger, some of them like a little bit more defined. And yeah, and I'm gonna end it over here. Won't do it all, and I might go on the other side and do some over here. Again, this is not exactly looking like it came from the same thing, but I'll just blend it to try to make it look a little bit more. Okay. It really doesn't need to look exactly like trees. They can just kind of look like squiggly lines coming out of the hill. Maybe if you want to make one kind of look like a tree, that sometimes works, but it's not working too well for me, probably because everything's a little bit wet. Oh, I tried. Okay, but it really, if it looks messy, that's fine. Honestly, it's better because in the background, trees look like that. They don't look defined, and they just kind of look like that. Okay. I like this one because you can really see the silhouette against the mountain. This one, I think it's because that mountain was pretty wet. You didn't see it too much. So ideally, you would wait a little bit, but we don't have that time. So usually we want it to look more like that, but this is okay too. And then you could stop here and just say like these are like fields, and there's not trees here, and there'll be trees higher up and near the mountains. Or you could just make some more, one thing you can do is maybe not trees, but like grass, or like fields, rolling hills that are like fields. So I'm just taking another green and kind of making it a bit, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. Hold on. Yikes. Okay, that's okay. We'll just call it part of the painting. Okay. But yeah, on the bottom, if you wanted to, you can do the same thing that we just did for the first layer with the trees and just with a lighter green. Or you can just make it like fields, which I probably is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna get yellow. And I'm just going however I want, like this. It's really does not matter. Honestly, the messier and kind of the more it looks like you didn't like try to follow some pattern or something, the more natural it looks. So yeah, I have like a greenish, yellowish color right now. And I'm really just going however I want with these like grassy kind of things. And I'm just making that be the foreground. So maybe I'm taking a hike through these fields and I see this setting.
Good.
But you always do the foreground details last. So if it's something more detailed and say there was like a person here or some path or something, you would do that absolute last. Because you don't, it's really easy to make the background first and then bring out the foreground, and the foreground will pop more instead of doing the foreground and trying to do the background around it. Okay, I think I might be almost done here. Just gonna do so, too much.
To remove the tape, do you have to wait till it completely dries?
Just a little bit. You don't really need to wait till it completely dries.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess it is better. Yeah, it is better too. I'm gonna just try to remove mine now, but everyone can wait if they want. I'm curious to see what. I'm a little impatient. I want to see what it looks like with the tape removed. One thing I might do on the mountains is mountains also have trees too. But they're gonna be the same color, the tree, as the mountain. You don't want to put green trees on this like blue mountain landscape. So now, because some of the mountains are more dry, I probably could, yeah, make a defined kind of thing here. I'm not gonna do a lot of it though. And again, blend the bottom to make it look like it comes from the same thing. Okay, I'm not gonna do it on all. Maybe over here.
Beautiful.
There you go. Okay, I think that makes the mountains pop out a bit more. This one is not too blended, so I'm just gonna. Okay, there you go. Okay. There, I think that might be done. We're also at the end of the class, so yeah, I think I'm done with mine.
Okay.
Very pretty.
Now, can you bring it closer to your camera if you don't mind?
Yes. Or like, I'll take the camera off. Give me a second. No.
Mm. Mm.
And oh, sorry, I'm in. Sorry, okay.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Really.
Very
Mhm.
nice. Can you remove the tape?
Yeah, I'm gonna remove it right now. Actually, let's do that.
So while she's removing her tape, anybody brave enough to share I'm sure everyone did good, because this is very forgiving. Yeah, no, come on, no, I don't want to see. Okay, see, let's make Raneem happy. Hang on, Raneem.
Hers is pretty.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love it.
Okay, there you go. Who else would like to go next?
No.
No?
Not
Mm-mm.
that.
No?
No.
No?
Rabia.
How about Sister Rabia?
You
I'm
know
sure-
what? I didn't have colors, just 6 colors, so it didn't work with me.
At all? Do you
Yeah.
want to share what you did?
No. The color is so bad.
It's
Okay.
okay.
No.
Sister Hakika, Sister Rehana, Sister Sophia.
No, let's see Sister Hakika's.
Let's see Sister Hakika's. Sister Hakika, turn your camera on and unmute yourself. We can't hear you. All right, we're seeing the reveal here.
Oh,
in the
that's pretty.
profile.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, which one?
Let's see.
I'm not.
I'm trying.
Okay, hang on. Here we go.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Her.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty.
Oh, did
Uh-huh.
you
Very
have
beautiful.
a helper today?
Yes, my grandson is here. He's hiding.
Okay.
Oh.
Good job.
Oh, very.
Good job.
I like the gradient with the mountains a lot.
Yeah, it came out really well.
Here we go.
So I'm taking the tape off right now. I just wanted to point something out. It was actually unintentional. But the tape I was using.
Okay.
Oh, very beautiful.
This.
And did another painting also.
All
Oh,
right.
okay. I was trying to point something out. This was unintentional.
Water on
But the
my-
tape I was using is exactly that painting we made.
Oh, how nice.
I got this from a craft store and I just don't use it too much. So I was going to use it. And I realized the exact painting we're doing is what is on the tape.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm taking this off. You have to be a little bit gentle with it. Yeah, and it's working okay. Well, kind of feathered a little bit over there, but that's okay.
Water on my
It really makes it look like a piece of art. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is why I really like to use the
That's really
painter's tape, because it really does bring everything together of something that could be a little bit like plain or simple, and it makes it look like, oh, that was, it just looks a little fancier. Anyways, this tore the paper a little bit over here. I think I took it off too forcefully, but that's okay.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
Very nice.
it frames it nicely, and it's kind of what I do for everything. Let me see if there's any other examples of something that I did.
That is.
really.
So this was something else I did that I also like. I didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to, this part, but when I took off the paint, the tape, it came together more. And this was in Sequoia.
Beautiful. So Raneem, can you do me a favor? Send me a picture of the painting. You can text it to me you can take the picture with your phone. And if we can see you on camera, then we would like to thank you for your instruction today. You were a great instructor. I love how you were describing everything really well. It's really challenging, especially describing what is up, right? So thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah.
And I would hope in the future, like, when we have in-person meetings, we will get a whole bunch of watercolor sets and palettes for our Olivers, and we can do sessions like this in person.
Yeah, inshallah.
Inshallah, good idea.
You're muted.
Yeah, she's muted.
Yeah, I would love to do in-person classes. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, and Raneem is actually very talented, Oliver. She also teaches young kids how to do book binding.
Nice.
Wow.
She's done book binding classes, so that's like an old school art in a way, right? A craft.
Yeah, I like the sketchbook that I was showing. This one, it's made from an old book that I got at a thrift store. You can see it's falling apart. But I tore out the pages and then rebound different types of paper and turned it into a book. I think I made this 2 years ago. There's a lot of pages, so I still haven't finished it. I'm very slow. I was hoping to finish it and make a new one this summer, but we'll see about that. But yeah, this has kind of been one of my favorite like possessions, is this old book, because I wanted to actually get like a sketchbook that had different types of paper in it, but I couldn't find one that I liked, because I wanted watercolor paper, drawing paper, craft paper, and like black paper, just for different types of drawings, and I didn't like having all different types of sketchbooks because I lose things all the time. So I just put all the papers I wanted and chose them and put them into one book.
And you made your own book. Wow, how cool is that? That's really cool. So I think, yeah, that would be a great session in the future when we are meeting in person, learning how to do bookbinding. It's like old school. I remember doing it with my grandma. We would sew books together in the middle and make a little book. Yeah. So thank you again. If our Olivers can thank our artist.
Thank you, Raneem.
You did
And
a
Oliver, I'm not going to let you go. You will have to share your pictures with me on the WhatsApp group. So I'll give you a few more minutes to, I know the paint has to dry and you have to take out the masking tape, but I would love to see your pictures and I will share it with Raneem, inshallah. Okay? Okay, one last time. Let's see this one painting. I see one painting. Oh,
Wow.
that's
and let's see Raneem.
Really beautiful.
Raneem one more time. And then anybody else want to show theirs? No? Okay. Alrighty, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. I will see you next week. Okay?
Okay.
And
Olive Community Services is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Southern California that provides culturally appropriate services to seniors, their family, and the community. Through its physical and virtual interactive programs, Olive engages participants in a variety of ways that promotes health and well-being. To learn more about Olive Community Services, to get involved, or to make a donation, please visit www.olivecs.org or email info@olivecs.org. Be a change maker, and together, let's live, learn, and thrive.